Hello. Thor's Day. World Economic News. Big blast of a chart, this one. It's Fannie Mae. We know Fannie and Freddie. Percentage of loans seriously delinquent. As you can see, it's coming down from a horrible 5.5 to under 4.5. But that's not really to the point. To the point is where it was for years and years and years. Just about nowhere. And it's up towards 4 when it should be at about a half, or was up at about a half anyway. But a quick run on Fannie and Freddie, now owned by the taxpayers of the United States. These people, I think they now take care of about 90% of US mortgages. What they do, what they've always done, is make mortgage-backed securities. That's their job, which means that they just bundle them together and sell them to investors as mortgage-backed securities. And they're always there to be bought because they're so safe. And why are they so safe is because they're guaranteed by Fannie and Freddie. That's their job. That's what they've always done. They guarantee them. If they go seriously delinquent, in other words, they're not paying out, Fannie and Freddie does the paying out. Or should I now say, the US taxpayer does the paying out. And that's why they are a money hole, a sink, a black hole of sucking in money by the tens and tens of billions, running into hundreds of billions a year, I would think, 100 billion a year at least. Stocks, next, Bloomberg. Stocks may fall, bonds gain when Fed ends QE2. Still this, what will happen in June when the Fed ends QE2? Which they almost invariably will. I think we're getting that now, aren't we? That they're human beings and they don't want to be called murdering bastards for causing riots in North Africa. So they will stop QE2. Anyway, this chappie says that at the end of QE2, you can see on these two charts, the orangey one and the grey one, the grey bars going up and down are the two slightly grey bars vertical. Yeah, you can see that the bottom one, the grey one, stocks went up on both occasions, but this is the S&P, and it's going back to the start of 2009. Basically, stocks have always been going up. The other one is the interest rate, the coupon on treasuries. The 10-year is this one, and during the QE 1 and 2, interest yields have gone up. In other words, prices have gone down. And you can see in the whiter area on the orangey one, the interest rate came down. In other words, prices went up. So the presumption here is, again, that when QE2 finishes, the chances are stocks will actually go down, bonds will go up in price, and down in yield. Yeah, just like Japan, down in yield. Moving on, banks' balance sheets have gone sideways as the Fed has added almost $2 trillion in reserves via outright security purchases. It's going to be $2.5 trillion by the time QE2 is finished, which is that violet coloured one, just going up. The blue one in this chart is the banks' total assets. They went up to a limit. Now they're just running along flat. But that's an interesting enough chart, and if you read the article you can get more information on it. That's a Deutsche Bank chart. This is written by Tracy Alloway, busy Tracy, and she knows her stuff. But she writes this. First, envision part of the QE process. The Fed purchases a security, a US Treasury, or a slice of a mortgage-backed security from Fannie or Freddie, or somebody who's bought it from Fannie or Freddie, from an investor. Yeah, that investor then sends the ensuing proceeds to a bank. With that, yep, generating an extra deposit. The bank can then lend that deposit to someone else to buy another security, or whatever. So the deposit eventually returns to the bank. And it can lend 90% of it out again, and so on. This is, what I think we've just about debunked over the months of World Economic Newsing. In theory, for every dollar the Fed injects into the economy with its asset purchases, banks should be able to leverage this 10 times through the bank multiplier. In practice, though, not so much. Banks' balance sheets have travelled sideways despite the $2 trillion worth of QE. And we've had the chart. And you can go back to it if you like, but that's what's happened. But there's no notice then, well, perhaps the bank multiplier is bunk. Still, they haven't quite caught on. Right, let's shift gears, as they say. Global energy use by source, 2010 estimates. This is the world, and this is the principal energy sources for all things energy usage. All of it, all of it, all of it. And where the energy comes from. Big black bar is big black oil, coal, natural gas, nuclear, less than hydro. And the boat's gone now for nuclear. I doubt if it's going to get very much bigger because the Western world won't go for it. And I think the Eastern world has probably even gone against it now as well. It's certainly not, you can see where it is in comparison to natural gas, coal and oil. Anyway, you've got your own ideas. Make your own ideas up. Build more dams, have some more hydro. No, I think they've probably done all the best of that can be done. Anyway, moving on again to the United States of America and the Theridian UCLA Pulse of Commerce Index. How much diesel is being used in the United States. And you can see it obviously did the normal thing, like most of these charts have this sort of shape, dip, went up, dipped down in the recession-y thing and is clawing its way back up. This is good news. Diesel use almost invariably means it's industrial sort of usage, and that means the United States is trying to get some traction in the economy. But it means they're using more diesel and they'll need more diesel and there'll be more demand for diesel. So more supply needs to be supplied of diesel. But it's good news for the economy that they're using that diesel. It's a funny thing, isn't it? Financial Times Alphaville, John McDermott gives us the inflationary Easter bunny. This is the United Kingdom. They had inflation went uppity, 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 up. Little go down this last announcement of inflation. This paragraph says steep discounting in food, clothing and footwear accounted for the bulk of the fall. That's the fall. Especially in year-over-year terms, and that has everything to do with Easter timing effects. Thus, there will almost certainly be a hefty payback in April for this temporary respite in March. As is well known, retailers tend to push up prices in the 2 weeks ahead of Easter and other holidays in order to institute the ostensible sharp discounts over holiday weekends, the more so given etc. etc. So they do not seem to be thinking that the uppity uppity up little come down is a trend. It's just a little blip and it could well go uppity uppity up again. More inflation in the UK. Very, very tricky for the Bank of England. Tilt gives us Arab revolt means the rich get richer for now. And it's an interesting, I could go on about this one all day. I'll read the 4 opening sentences. The people of Egypt and Tunisia should, in the long run, enjoy the fruits of reclaiming their states from autocratic kleptocrats. But in the short term, they will bear the costs of political uncertainty, a flight to safety by foreign investors, and high oil prices. And the beneficiaries of all 3 phenomena will be the rich oil exporting states of the Gulf. In other words, this push for democracy by the North Africans and Arab states is going to be a short-term pain thing, with the hope of long-term gains. Poor bastards. I don't think that they're going to see the long-term gains, but they're sure as hell going to get the short-term. Life was never meant to be fair. China, property developers feel the pinch over tightened belt. Oh, Beijing. Chinese property developers are suffering from a slump in cash flow amid government tightening measures meant to battle rising inflation and raise in speculation in the housing market. The free cash flow of the 84 property developers that filed their annual reports for 2010 to the Shanghai Stock Exchange on Monday stood at negative 71 billion yuan. This came in a sharp contrast to the 115 billion yuan of 2009. So plus 115 billion yuan down to minus 80 billion yuan, or in dollars. And these, it's big numbers. It's about $15 billion plus to $10 billion minus. That's a heck of a jump. And, that's their cash flow as well. They'll need to do better next year, or there will be trouble. At the banks owned by the Chinese people. Brazil will finish with iBrazil. At iLast, Foxconn in talks on $12 billion investment. The lucrative iPad smuggling route between New York and Sao Paulo just got pinched. Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff announced in Beijing on Tuesday that China's Foxconn is in talks on a $12 billion investment to set up production facilities in Brazil. Foxconn, we know, we've seen the pictures, I've put them up here, you will have seen them, I'm sure, in videos or on the television, of, great sheds of people in white sitting at tables doing things exactly as Foxconn tells them to do. And we all look at it and go, God, I'm glad I'm not a worker there. But Dilma Rousseff, the new presidente of Brazil, thinks that's a good thing for the workers of Brazil, and she's a pretty socialist type. And we ask ourselves, well, if it's good enough for the people of Brazil, it's good enough for the people of China, but it's not good enough for us. So what are we going to do? Is she right? Taking those jobs on? Building iPods? Tricky. Right. That's it. See you tomorrow. Bye.